Moonraker may not be the most beloved entry in the James Bond franchise, but it is undeniably a standout as one of the most distinctive. As a lifelong enthusiast of the 007 series, I've cherished these films since childhood. Each movie offers a unique atmosphere, some masterfully capture the gritty essence of a spy thriller, while others venture into campy territory for better or for worse. My passion for both James Bond and science fiction suggests that a film blending these elements, Bond and space, should, in theory, be a triumph. However, Moonraker has never ranked among my favorite James Bond movies. I tried to open my mind and watch it from a fresh perspective and just enjoy the movie for what it is. Regrettably, the experience proved even more disappointing than I remembered. Moonraker transforms the sophisticated espionage series into chaotic slapstick, a space farce. Allow me to dissect this movie scene by scene, analyzing its cinematic choices and pinpointing why it ultimately fails to deliver either a Bond classic or a credible science fiction endeavor. The movie begins promisingly enough. It opens with a space shuttle named Moonraker, mounted on top of 747 or some similar aircraft, only for the shuttle to be brazenly stolen mid-flight, resulting in the plane's destruction. Cool sequence. The high-stakes setup introduces the central mystery, effectively aligning the franchise's love for audacious stakes with a hint of science fiction stuff to come. The narrative then shifts to James Bond, played by Roger Moore. I will say this, Roger Moore is good in this movie. He gives it everything he's got. Roger Moore is not the reason the movie isn't very good. This is Roger Moore's fourth outing as the iconic spy. In a thrilling sequence, Bond skydives from a plane, engaging in a mid-air struggle with a villain named Jaws, who was in the previous Bond movie, and they struggle over a single parachute as they freefall. The cinematography here is exhilarating, with James Bond securing the parachute just in the nick of time, despite this sequence using obvious stunt doubles, and you can see the parachutes concealed under their suit jackets. That's forgivable because these were actual falling people. This wasn't computer graphics or special effects, these were real skydivers, which makes this really cool to watch. And that's something Tom Cruise would emulate in his Mission Impossible movies, trying to do real stunt work as often as possible instead of using special effects. The skydiving sequence works in Moonraker, and it's the film's high point. Sadly, it's pretty much downhill from there. I won't say much about the theme music, although Shirley Bassey did a great job with the Goldfinger theme. The theme for Moonraker here isn't my favorite, but we can let that slide. The subsequent briefing with M and Q feels like it's a quintessential James Bond moment. For a little while here, this seems like it might actually be a real James Bond movie. We get the gadgets, we get dry humor, and a mission to locate a stolen space shuttle, offering a fleeting sense of classic James Bond. After getting the assignment, James Bond goes to Hugo Drax, the bazillionaire industrialist behind the Moonraker shuttle program, whose space shuttles bear an uncanny resemblance to the NASA real-world design, a detail that feels like a lazy shortcut rather than a clever homage. Michael Lansdale's portrayal of Drax exudes smug aristocratic menace, his opulent mansion serving as a fitting backdrop for his villainy. Very James Bond-like, however, the film quickly veers into absurdity. Bond meets with a woman named Dr. Holly Goodhead. Yes, that's the real character's name. As a scientist, among other things, she oversees the astronaut training centrifuge trainer thingy, which Bond enters without hesitation, even though there's no reason for him to do so. A decision that defies his reputation as a supposedly well-trained spy and government operative. Drax's henchman, Chang, takes control of the machine after Dr. Goodhead wanders away, and he accelerates the device to lethal speeds. Now this is fun. My son, who is in the first grade, was taking a break from crafting a Minecraft universe, watched this bit of the movie, and he said, "Why build a machine that can go fast enough to kill someone?" Proud dad moment here. He's already pointing out plot holes. The apple didn't fall far from the tree. His observation was absolutely correct. This highlights Moonraker's tendency to prioritize action over plausibility. It seemed James Bond enough. You gotta have the moment where James Bond is put in a silly thing that he escapes from. It's a hallmark of these movies, so we can give that a pass, even though it's ridiculous. However, the narrative descends even further into farce with the pheasant hunting sequence with Drax. Having hunted birds myself in my youth with my grandfather, I can attest to the filmmaker's apparent ignorance of firearms. Shotguns loaded with bird shot for bird hunting have a limited range. You don't fire a bullet at a pheasant, you fire tiny little pellets out of a shotgun. Those pellets lose their velocity very rapidly as they dissipate. Imagine throwing a handful of gravel at a target 2 feet away. Pretty devastating. Move back 30 feet and throw the same handful of gravel, not so much. The film depicts Drax shooting birds at impossible distances, and more egregiously, James Bond kills a sniper in a tree with birdshot from a really long way away. A feat defying basic ballistics. Pellets from the shotgun wouldn't even penetrate clothing at that distance, let alone kill someone. Setting aside the ridiculous physics, this sequence exemplifies Moonraker's disregard for realism in another way, because if James Bond killed somebody in front of Drax, don't you think that the fake friendliness between these two would immediately end at that point? I mean, Bond literally just killed somebody and they act as if like nothing happened. They're still buddies. The film's tone grows increasingly erratic in Venice, where James Bond investigates Drax operations, a visit to a glass factory, secretly producing canisters for Drax's nefarious scheme. This scene leads to a bizarre boat chase. Bond, alone in a romantic canal cruise, is ambushed by a knife-throwing assassin emerging from a coffin on top of a funeral boat. Yeah, that's something that happens. Think about the logistics and timing of such an attack. Venice has a lot of winding canals. Did the knife-wielding assassin in the coffin know which route Bond was going to take and when he was going to go in the water and why? Maybe try to shoot James Bond in the back of the head from a safe distance? Nope. The chase escalates further into absurdity when Bond's boat turns into a hovercraft because it's a spy boat for some reason. It goes skimming over the land and a pigeon does a comical double take. Yes, a pigeon does a double take. A pigeon is surprised by what it sees. This is a jarring Looney Tunes moment that shatters anything that was left of the movie's tonal coherence. While the James Bond series often employs humor, this slapstick detour feels incongruous and it pulls viewers out of the espionage narrative. Humor is okay when it's somebody saying something funny, or a situation that's a little bit ridiculous, but to have the bird do a double take, to have it turn into slapstick silliness, just doesn't work. Now, I like slapstick movies, but there's a time and a place. This is a tonal shift towards self-parody that undermines the film itself. In other words, if the movie doesn't take the movie seriously, why should the audience take the movie seriously? There's a peculiar pop culture reference in this movie that made me chuckle. Bond uncovers a secret lab and there's a keypad so that the scientists can let themselves in and out. When they push the buttons, it creates the 5-note iconic ba, 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 or however it goes. It creates the iconic 5-note sequence from Close Encounters of the Third Kind. So back to the story. Inside the lab, Bond discovers Drax's plan. Poison gas orbs made from some weird plant designed to eradicate humanity while sparing animals and plants. It's poison that only kills people. The concept is ambitious enough, fitting a grandiose villainy that we expect from Bond antagonists. Then there is a subsequent fight in a glass museum, which I think is hilarious. They're breaking every piece of glass possible. It's almost, again, that self-parody. Glass breaks when people have fights, so why not have them have fights in a glass factory? It's amusing. But why a samurai in Venice? Well, it's because it's Drax henchman Chang. I guess he's a samurai too. The destruction of priceless artifacts and literally every single piece of glass is humorous enough, it's entertaining enough, but somehow the only piece of glass that doesn't get broken is the piece of glass holding the poison in James Bond's pocket. Bond kills Chang by dropping him into a grand piano from a few stories up. That made me chuckle. In the cartoons, characters can have a piano dropped on their head. This movie has someone's head dropped on a piano. The movie moves to Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and there is some beautiful cinematography here. Bond reunites with Dr. Goodhead, now revealed as a CIA operative after James Bond finds all her ridiculous spy gadgets in her hotel room. Then their partnership is sealed with some off-screen nookie. Anyway, there's a fun fight between Jaws and James Bond on a cable car. It looks pretty good. Bond gets away, and Jaws finds a woman with pigtails, and a romance ensues. I guess that's kind of sweet. Then we get a competently filmed Amazon River chase. There's some blue screen backgrounds, and that's okay. The chase sequence mostly works, and it's helped by John Barry's dynamic blend of disco and orchestral music. The Bond music in this movie works. The sequence ends with James Bond's boat going over a waterfall, but he escapes by using a hang glider that was built into the boat. James Bond flies away on his hang glider, and Jaws and the bad guys go over the gigantic waterfall to plummet to his death, only he survives. When James Bond's glider lands in the jungle, he discovers Drax's jungle lair completely by stupid luck. How does he find it? Is it through sleuthing? Is it through his spy work? No, it's because he randomly spots an attractive woman in the jungle and follows her because he has a giant libido. He follows the woman right into Drax's lair. That was pretty lucky. As soon as he walks in, he sees a bunch of attractive people in uniforms standing by a pond, and then he steps on a platform which is designed to plop him into a snake pit. Seriously, when designing this facility, Drax must have at one point said, "And I want a snake pit with a hidden plank to drop people into it so I can kill them if I feel so inclined." No wonder Austin Powers parodied this with a Bond villain, Dr. Evil, wanting sharks with friggin' laser beams attached to their heads. It's really not that much of a parody. This movie pretty much parodies itself. Anyway, Bond escapes from the giant snake trying to kill him because he has a poisonous pen in his pocket that he picked up from the CIA lady, Dr. Goodhead, which he conveniently had with him. While all of this is happening, attractive, scantily clad women and men look on as if this was totally normal. They don't try to help, they're not horrified, they're just like, look, somebody being eaten by a snake. Anyway, after Bond escapes, Drax starts to monologue and reveals his plan to repopulate the Earth with perfect humans. You know, there's henchmen with guns right behind him. He tried to kill him 10 seconds ago, so why doesn't he continue to want to kill him by having him shot? No, Bond's gonna hear the monologue from Drax. Now, Drax's plan is to repopulate the Earth after he kills everyone with these supposedly perfect humans. But here's the thing. How did Drax recruit his followers for such an extreme agenda without attracting any scrutiny? Can you imagine the job posting for this? How did the job interviews go? How would you feel about your entire family and everyone you have ever known dying horribly, but guess what? You get to have sex in space. Like most villains of this era, rather than eliminating Bond efficiently, Drax places James Bond and Dr. Goodhead beneath a launching platform of a space shuttle. This defies logic on so many levels. The blast from that space shuttle launch would kill everyone in the facility, not just James Bond and Dr. Goodhead. The sound vibrations alone would have killed them. They blast gigantic explosions. Those cannot be run away from. Setting aside the obvious impossibility of all that, their escape is still silly. They exit to a tunnel and just walk away casually. With no effort at all, they walk onto one of the space shuttles without anyone attempting to verify their identity. You know, these people are new. They wouldn't have been recognized. Somebody should have asked who they were, but nope, they just walk right onto the space shuttle, get into the cockpit, and get launched up into space. The climax unfolds in a sprawling, radar-invisible space station, a concept that defies real-world physics once again. The real-world International Space Station, which is far smaller, is visible from Earth with the naked eye, yet Drax's massive, gigantic space station supposedly evades detection. Nobody on Earth can see a brand new star appear in the sky. Bond sabotages the station, turn off its artificial gravity by slowing its spin. Drax launches his henchmen into space to have a laser battle with an incoming set of US Marines in spacesuits, having arrived via an American space shuttle, armed improbably with similar laser weaponry. Good thing the shuttle and Space Marines were ready to go on a moment's notice. Weird how the good guys and bad guys seem to have similar space combat gear. Pew 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 pew! The dated visual effects resemble cheap models even by 1979 standards. I don't begrudge the movie for being made when it was made, but it looks bad, even for then. Compare this to Spock's spacewalk in the movie Star Trek: The Motion Picture for comparison. The spacesuit stuff in Star Trek looked good. The stuff in Moonraker looked kinda awful. Bond dispatches Drax by poisoning him with a dart and then launching him into space, making full use of that handy British license to kill. I wonder how you apply for one of those licenses. It was a mediocre villain kill at best, but anything is better than the exploding bad guy from Live and Let Die. Bond and Goodhead steal a shuttle and shoot down the orbiting poison orbs before they can destroy people on the Earth. And then they have romantic weightless sex, because of course they do. Moonraker's final act drags the less than stellar film into embarrassing science fiction parody, far removed from the espionage roots of the books and the earlier movies that defined the franchise. Moonraker's producers leaned heavy into the science fiction element to try to capitalize on the genre's popularity, but the result dilutes what makes James Bond compelling. Grounded espionage, sharp wit, occasional humor, and lots of fun action. The film's tonal inconsistency, flipping between thriller and comedy and cheesy space movie, coupled with gaping plot holes and a disregard for basic scientific principles, like surviving a shuttle's launch, render its failure as both a James Bond movie or a science fiction movie. Roger Moore's charisma and Jaws' memorable presence offer fleeting enjoyment, but the script's laziness and lack of narrative rigor overshadows these strengths. I used to say that Live and Let Die might be my least favorite James Bond movie. I don't know, Moonraker might be a tie. For those of you yet to experience Moonraker, consider approaching it as a curiosity, a film that offers plenty of unintentional humor. I plan to go through all of the James Bond movies, starting with the rest of the Roger Moore films. I'm open to suggestions. What movie would you like to see me dive into next? If you feel so inclined, you can check out my novels on Amazon.com, and you can read the first little bit of my book Death Siren for free at ericwilfordwatson.com. This is Eric Wilford Watson signing out.